definitely appropriate. Greetings, my peoples, and welcome to this week's episode of Final Douche ASMR. And this week we are, going to talk about the 1985 banger Brothers in Arms by Dire Straits. This album, not only is it a great album, if you like Dire Straits, it's, definitely sort of, I think they hit their stride with this one. I'm a big fan of their first album as well. But this is their fifth album, and I always just love the cover of this. The color scheme, I think, is just really appealing to the eye, and for me anyway, when this album and Money for Nothing, and in particular, and actually the next single after that, definitely reminds me of my childhood in the 80s, and just sort of this color scheme. It's sort of sort of peaceful and non-threatening. Same with the visuals of a guitar and this cloudy sky, and I don't know, just so it has a positive feeling to this album. More throwback to more carefree time, which was the 80s, in 1985. And when this album dropped, it did an amazing job. It was 14 non-consecutive weeks at number one in the UK, and it was 9 weeks at number one on the Billboard 200 here in the US. It is, let me see where it can, Rolling Stones ranked it as number 418 on their 500 greatest albums of all time. And let's see, Q Magazine ranked it 51 on their 100 British albums ever. Okay. It won a Grammy for Best Engineered Album in 1986, and it won Best British Album at the 1987 Brit Awards, and that's a big deal at the Brit Awards. And actually won another Grammy in 2006 for Best Surround Sound Album, I guess, for a re-release. So this album did its thing financially, and commercially, and you can't sort of not talk about this album and not connect it to the video for Money for Nothing, which I feel is sort of the visual story of what MTV was, when it first started, and before it became the juggernaut that it was, and I guess kind of still is, as far as a channel and a production entity. It's no longer a music channel, but a music video channel, but it's definitely still a powerhouse in entertainment, and the start of that is definitely linked to Money for Nothing. It's definitely one of the most heavy rotated videos in the early days, and looks like it was the first video ever aired on MTV UK when it premiered in 1987. And the song itself, it's sort of the, a blue-collar take on looking at pop music and, sort of masculinity and, music and it's just in life and work. So it was recorded in a couple places, the first one being Air Studios in Montserrat, which is it's a British territory in the Caribbean, and Air Studios was there and served for a lot of artists in the 70s and 80s. It's not there anymore, and it's small, sort of small feel to the studio rooms that's added to the sound. And Brothers in Arms was the first album recorded on a Sony 24-track digital tape machine. So yeah, it looks like, Knopfler, last name of the lead guitarist and lead songwriter, and I guess sort of the soul of the band, always was pushing the envelope to get better sound. I guess I can try to explain, because one thing, I like music and I'm interested in it, but the production of music is a mystery to me. The sound that they got for Money for Nothing off of Knopfler's guitar is said to have been enhanced by the microphone's placement, and they had, by mistake, a mic was pointing down to the floor, and quote to the engineer, who I'll mention later, he said that another was not quite on the speaker, and another mic was somewhere else, and it wasn't how I would want to set things up. It was probably just left from the night before, where I'd been preparing things for the next day and had not really finished the setup. What they had heard was exactly what ended up on the record. No additional touches were made during the mix, so I guess the placement of the mics in that room added to that sound. There was some drama. Their drummer, Terry Williams, was eventually replaced by Omar Hakim, who was a jazz drummer. Terry's performance was not fitting the sound of the album. So he got his pink slip, unfortunately. His drumming is heard definitely in the beginning of Money for Nothing, gets credit for that, and yeah, let's actually talk about the band real quick before we go back to the cover, but yes, let's do a quick roll call of everyone who was on it. So as I mentioned, Mark Knopfler he's lead guitar and vocals, and I guess sort of the soul of the band. John Ilsley is on bass and vocals. Alan Clark is on piano and Hammond organ, and Guy Fletcher is on the Yamaha DX1 synthesizer. Clavier, almost had it, and the Roland synthesizer, and he's also on some vocals. Terry Williams was on drums, as I mentioned before. I did some for Money for Nothing, the beginning part, and Walk of Life. That was the other big single on the album. Actually, it was Guy Fletcher was not the new addition. Sorry, it was Jack Sonny, who is on guitar synth. He was an addition. And as I mentioned, Omar Hakim came in for drums. And of course, Sting gets writing credit for his singing of Money for Nothing over and over again, which he did to the melody of his other song, Don't Stand So Close to Me. And that, I Want My MTV is, also throwing back to what I said before about the marketing and, the branding of MTV. What it became was I Want My MTV was, a big part of that as well. Alright, so I mentioned I want to talk about this cover real quick. And that is also mention real quick that the albums also had some New York sessions. The second, after they were done at Air, they moved to the power station in New York. At Air, they said that after a while it wasn't, the technology of Air wasn't sufficient, so they moved to New York, that power station, to finish the album. And let me just get to the artwork here. Alright, so this is actually Mark Knopfler's 1937 14 fret National Style O resonator. So it's his own instrument that was photographed by Deborah Feingold. And on the back is a painting of the guitar by artist Thomas Stayer. And no other information on the sort of, the album had to have some kind of graphics designer. And whoever it was did a good job. And I don't have any information on that. Probably someone at Warner Brothers, which is the label that put it out. Actually, it was Warner Brothers here in the U.S., and it was released by by Vertigo Records internationally. All right, let's look inside. I'll have the plain back. This pink off of the blue. It's definitely sort of mnemonic connection to, beautiful sunsets, which is definitely appropriate for Dire Straits, I feel. It's definitely chill. Here is the lyrics with the same color scheme. Just really beautiful. Some more liner notes. Put it in the plastic already on the inside, if you see. But I want to keep this. Alright, this is side 2. Side 1, we start the album with So Far Away and the classic Money for Nothing. followed by the other classic, Walk of Life, Your Latest Trick, and the last song on this side was Why Worry. And on side 2 is Right Across the River, The Man's Too Strong, One Word, World, One World, and the last track on the album is Brothers in Arms, the title track. And the Walk of Life, the use of the synths in Walk of Life just definitely has that 80s sound. It reminds me of Touch a Grave from Rolling Stone, from the Grateful Dead. Let's see, got a little. Let's tape this up. Okay, doesn't look too bad. Classic Brothers in Arms by Dire Straits. Hey everybody, thank you for listening. If you like what you see, give me a thumbs up and follow me. I do this every week. Alright, see you next time.